Hi, today's video is all about scraps. In fact, crumbs. Those little itty bits that you just love, don't want to get rid of. You know you can make a use for them. Well, this is it. These strips, they are so easy to make and quite addictive, I might add. I'm going to show you 4 different quilts made with these strips. And I'm going to give you the measurements so you can make them too. Because we all have scraps, right? Hi, I'm Di with Sister Chicks Quilting, and welcome to my channel. Like I told you earlier, today's video is going to be all about these scrappy strips. I've come up with 4 blocks, and they're no secret. They've probably been done before. First, I want to talk to you about the scrap strip. The scrap strip. But first I want to talk to you about the strip scrap. First I want to talk to you about the scrap strip. Oh my gosh. I want to talk to you about this scrap strip. There we go. I got it. I have been watching everybody make them. And I've made plenty of them in my life. I've also been looking at all the ways. Do you know you could foundation piece them? Another method, your adding machine tape or paper. That's another way to do it. Let me tell you something. Would you want to pull all the papers from this? Not I, said Di. I'm not going to do it. I was this close to buying some of the 2.5-inch strip tape that you can get all over Amazon. It's cheap. It's like about 20 bucks for 6 rolls, something like that. And the cool thing, it washes out. That's a quilter's dream. However, I didn't do that. I kind of cheated. I'm going to show you the cheater's way to make these strips so you don't have to buy any extra product and you don't have to pick out any paper. And so you don't have to cut fabric strips to foundation piece them. Why don't we get started? And the first thing you need is a bin of strips. This is what I'm going to be working with. I have saved these. You just start sewing them together like this. I'm not going to care if they're straight. Then I finger press them. Or if you wanted to iron along the way, you could iron, but I iron at the end. Then I'm going to put another one. Like I say, I'm not caring if they're straight or not. What I do is pull from the pile beneath the camera in no particular order, and I just sew them up. The key here is no particular order. What's happening is we're starting to curve this way because it's crooked. So I'm going to make it straight by putting this here, and instead of following the line, bringing this down a little bit. Yeah, that looks pretty straight to me. Do you like the technical part of it? I'm working with a 5-inch strip. Oh, here's a pretty green. I think this is an old tulip pink. I just add on and add on. Do you see how easy it is? This is how the back looks. It's not pressed in any particular way. When I say this is mindless and relaxing, it's because it definitely is. I am just going to sew a bunch of these up and then show you how I trim them. When I get one that is a little bit too long, like this blue one on top, I simply lay it down and trim it off. I'm wanting to keep this strip set about 5 inches wide, and I'm wanting to keep it pretty straight. You have your choice. When you get a really thick one, you may not want a thick one. You can either sew another piece on up here, or you can just trim it off. I'm going to take the rotary cutter and trim it down a little bit, throw this piece back in, and then look at this. I see this pretty sunshiny yellow piece. Then I'm going to sew this piece on. You know, there's days when you want to sew, but you just don't feel like following a pattern. You want to do something that's really relaxing, but you have that need to sit at your machine and sew fabric. This is perfect for those days. Absolutely perfect. Or you may be sick, not wanting to lay in bed. Oh, this one's cute. Look at the sock monkeys. I'm going to put those on. So I call this relaxing sewing. And look how long it is already. It's a good 15 inches. It takes no time at all to get up to 36 inches. I like to work in yards. This is my finished strip. It's a good yard or more, but it's a mess. It needs to be pressed and trimmed, which I'm going to do. But guess what I just did? I was playing with my scrap basket, which I shouldn't have, and this is what I did. I cut all of these 2.5 inch squares to put in my 2.5 inch square. This is what's really impressive. I cut all of these 2.5 inch strips, and these go in my 2.5 inch strip scrap pile for future scrappy quilts. My favorite is the Scrappy Trip Around the World. I'm not going to sort them by color. I am just going to put them in and put this on the shelf. Ooh, they're so beautiful in there. Bunch of yellows. Have a lot of pinks. That's a nice blue one, isn't it? And then look at this cute one. You know what? This Briar Rose fabric was a Riley Blake. Okay. I am going to put this away and get back to making my video. I'm going to meet you at the iron. This is how I press these. Now, you do want to use a steam iron, and I've made them big enough so we don't care if they shrink. My steam probably won't shrink them because I'm using the Laura Star. Let me bleed the line. And all I do is press everything the same direction. See how slick that is? So that's the first thing you do on your strip, is press it the same direction. Oh, you know what? One thing I forgot to mention, when I'm sewing scraps, I sew with a little bit smaller stitch length. So normally I sew with a 2.4, but when I made this, I sew with a 2. And it's just because you're sewing with scraps, the seams are small, and you just want them to be good and stitched down. This is the second thing I do. I use a little dollar store spray starch. You don't have to, and you could certainly use another kind of spray starch. There's Flatter or Mary Ellen's Best Press, but it puts a nice finish on. And I'm not steaming it this time. We're going to give this a really good press to dry out that spray starch, and I can feel that it's getting crispy, a little bit crispy already, which is what you want. It's just easier to work with when it's a little bit crispy from the starch. Now I want to cut it, and we're going to put this in a block. I'm going to need some 3-inch strip widths for the block I'm going to do. I recorded this section of the video and I didn't have it going. So let me show you what I did. I'm going to put this back on and this back on. This is my approximately 5-inch strip, 5 inches from here to here. Now, depending on the block that you choose to use, you may want to make your strip 4 inches, but if you're going to need a 2.5-inch strip, for instance, and want to live dangerously, make it 3 or 3.5 inches, but make it bigger than what you need. For this block, I'm going to need a 3-inch strip. So I cut off this side and then I cut off this side, and I have this lovely crispy, well-pressed 3-inch strip. I'm going to use that to make my first block. In fact, I make the first 2 blocks out of a 3-inch strip. Let's get started on those blocks. I think you're going to like them. This is block number 3, and I told you it was super simple. Wait until you see it done though. This, of course, is the Scrappy block, and this is the background color block, and I chose to do white. So what I need is a strip of fabric. So I want it 3 inches wide, the same width as my Scrappy block. We're just gonna cut that. You know what, I'll cut a couple while I'm at it. Turning off my blade, guys. Some of you yell at me, sorry. Take my 3-inch strip and I'm just going to put a seam along it, 1/4 inch right here, all the way down. Oh, this worked out perfect. Look at that. I hardly have any waste here. Let me seam this and I'll get right back to you. I've seamed this, pressed it to the dark side. Now let me just mention to you, pressing to the dark side with all of these seams is not easy. As you can see, I have something here that needs to be pressed down a little bit more. In fact, I'm gonna go take care of that right now. Okay, that truthfully is the hardest thing about making this block, is making sure the seam gets pressed to the dark side. But I'm afraid if it were pressed to the light side, you could see through the, through the white on the front. I used a lot of steam and it was a good thing. Then you wanna cut 3-inch squares, and that's it. So get your ruler out, and when you cut, I don't use the mat, I use the ruler. So I make sure a line on my ruler is following the seam line and it's on there straight. And then I'll trim the edge off, and I'm going to go ahead and cut 5-inch strips. Oh, you guys caught me. I didn't close my blade, but I set it down over there, so no one's over there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is all you do, is you cut this up, making sure that it lines up good. And then I have a few other tips for construction of this block. In fact, I haven't even shown you the finished block, have I? Here's my components, and ta-da! What do you think of that block? I think it's very fun. This is my 5-inch, this is my 3-inch, and the same with the white. I sew the blocks together like this, and then like this. What do you think of a whole quilt made with this block? Ta-da! I am calling this block number 1, okay? And I'm going to give you the measurements right now. First, you use a 3-inch strip of Scrappy strips and a 3-inch strip of background fabric. It can be any color. I just used white. And then you sew them together, strip piecing. You subcut that strip into 5-inch strips or 5-inch blocks. So they're actually like 6 inches by 5 inches, okay? And each block is going to have, let me explode this so it's easier to see. Each block is going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Got it? Again, a 3-inch strip of Scrappy, a 3-inch strip of white, strip them together, cut them into 5 inches, and then sew those together. Isn't that a fun, easy block? Would you like to see what it looks like as a whole quilt done? Okay, your wish is my command. Wow, what do you think of this quilt? I think it is just like, whoa, 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 whoa. Isn't it amazing how all of the scraps that didn't match anything, now they really, really match? and they just bring this whole quilt together. This has been probably the easiest of the blocks that I'm showing you. But now it's time to move on. Block number 2. This is block number 2. Golly gumbo, it looks like a rail fence to me. But I wanted to shake it up just a little eensy weensy, so I did. And this is again made with a 3-inch strip of scraps. The white portion in between the rail fence or the background is made with a 2.5-inch strip. Let me show you what a finished block looks like. I'm not going to tell you how to sew this one up. What do you think? Now, all of these have been squared up to 9 inches. Why don't I put them on the board so you can see them? And then I'll show them to you in a larger quilt. Ready for the magic? I think it's phenomenal. I think it's fun. It's interesting. It would be so much fun to custom quilt, put something fun in the white rails. Would you like to see this block in a full-size quilt? Ta-da! What do you think of this? Oh my goodness! Who ever would have thought that it would make such an impact or be such a wow? This is such an easy scrappy strip to make, and look what you can do with it. I've shown you 2 quilts. Isn't that the most fun? I think it's pretty phenomenal. Do you have some ideas on what you would do with a scrappy strip? And it can be 2.5, 3-inch, 4-inch, it doesn't matter. I would love to see what you're doing with it or what you would want to do with it. If you have some ideas on what you could make with this scrappy strip, put it in the comments down below. I think we all ought to help each other and make phenomenal scrappy quilts. Now, are you ready to see block number 3? It's next. Here is block number 3. You've seen this out there before, and it's made with 2.5-inch strips. Let me show you my fabric. Check out that background piece. Isn't that beautiful? I saw this in a closeout. It was for sale, and I thought, oh my goodness, what a good blender / background fabric. And then the color, I'm such a sucker for, oh, and look, it matches my nails. Oh, these are my Easter nails. I get them done at Totally Beach and Spa in Emmett. Anyway, this matches my nails. I love it. This is Color Club from Wyndham Fabrics. Let me show you the block. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? You know what's nice about it? The background isn't white. Can you imagine what an entire quilt of this block would look like? And then for every block I make with the scrappy on the inside, starting with the scrappy on the inside, I will make a block where the solid or background is on the inside and make them opposite so they look like this. I think this is the coolest. I'm gonna go over the construction of this block with you because it's slightly fussy. The first thing you want to do is cut your background strips at 2.5 inch and cut your scrappy strips at 2.5 inches. I have one started. Make sure you get this block pressed well as you go. The first thing I want to talk about is which way to press this block. Because the background is darker, I'm pressing to the side of the scrappy. It just seemed to be logically easier to try and press it this way than to fold it over this way. That's what I've done, is press these to the inside. Then I'm going to lay the strips out and cut them. You could measure if you wanted to. So it's 6.5 inches. So I can cut 2 strips at 6.5 inches. Give it a slice. I put these on first, these 2 pieces on. So I'm going to continue that order, and I'm going to sew this on first, like this. So now I need to cut this side, and let's measure it. 10.5 inches and 10.5 inches. You can pin if you want, certainly. All right, let's get this side done. It is coming together, isn't it? Now, this is the top and this is the bottom. So let's start here again with this strip. And it should be 10.5 inches that we cut. Yep, it's 10.5 inches. Line this ruler up next to the edge and this next to that. Woo, look at that. I'm gonna go with it. I will put this on first. I will just trim that little piece that was folded right off. This is what I wanted you to see. When I go to press this seam, it naturally wants to lay flat because of all of these seams in it. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to press it so it lays flat. And then I'm going to trim off this little piece right here by lining as much of my ruler as I can with the edge of the fabric, which is nice and square. Then we'll do this side. So there is this one. And there I have my top and bottom on the block. And I just have to, see how nicely that matches? This one I'm going to trim off that little dog ear. And then I'm ready for the last two pieces. Woohoo! Look at this piece of aqua that I have in here. Do I want this knowing that it's gonna go next to this? That's a little close for me. What do you think? Is that color a little close for you? I'm going to take this off. It's a good thing you have options. I like the yellow better. Ooh, I'm getting excited, you guys. All made with 2.5 inch strips. Isn't that just amazing? The look is so different. And that one, there's a teeny tiny little corner. Boom, and it's gone. And the last strip, here it goes. Look at the school buses. Isn't that too hilarious? Oh shoot, it's ending on a aqua. Let's see how that's going to look. I don't know. Oh man, dang it all to heck. Okay, the school buses are getting axed. I'm going to cut it right on this seam. It will end up with red on the end. And quilters, will you look at that? Woohoo! I love it. Let me just trim off that little corner, being very careful to make sure everything is lined up. And I'll check the other side as well. I square it up to 14 inches square. And what would you think the last step is? If you guessed a victory lap, you're right. You want to make sure this is stitched at 1/8 of an inch all the way around this block. Isn't that a fun block? So again, let me recap. 2.5 inches, 2.5 inches. So you're using 2.5 inch strips to make this. You make every other quilt block like this. Would you like to see how that looks on the quilting wall? Okay, here they are. Oh, I think I'm in love with the background. That gives such a dimension to the quilt, proving that you don't always have to use white. And you know what? Blender fabrics on sale are just the bomb diggity. Don't you agree? Now, would you like to see this quilt blown up with a lot of blocks? Ta-da! Check it out! Isn't it fantastic? I can't wait to finish these blocks and put this quilt together. It is going to be such a fun quilt. I've shown you 3 blocks so far. Which are your favorite? Block number 3, block number 2, or block number 1? Better not choose, because I'm just about to make block number 4. And I have to tell you, it's my favorite. Here it comes. I didn't get block number 4 drawn up. It's all in my head, but I can tell you what you need. A 4-inch strip of fabric. I really wanted to show off all of my scrappy piecing fabric. This is what I did with this block. I love blue. I don't know, I just love blue. I love blue in quilts. Look at this block. Isn't that cool? Oh my gosh. I did it on the angle. And what I did to come up with this triangle, I played a lot, but I cut out, and by the way, I'm gonna bring this fabric up close so you can see it. You know what it is? It's some red, white, and blue fabric. Of course it is. Look, it's the stars. But when you hold it back, when you stand back and look at it on a quilt, you don't see the blue star fabric because this just changes everything. So what I did was take a 12-inch block like so, and I cut it right in half on the diagonal. And what I'm going to do is cut a bunch of these at the same time on the diagonal, just because it's easy to do that way. I'm going to lay this like so, point to point, and give it a slice. Going to take my strip. Now, these are all cut so they go well over the edge, because when you put this on like so, this line will have to continue to come out here, and this line will have to continue to come out here. So you have to give yourself a little leeway. I have a long strip of it, and I'm going to cut it right on the middle, right on this fold. You know what? Just kidding. You know me. I'm not going to cut on the fold because there's valuable seam allowance in there that I can use in my strip. And that's what I want, is that valuable seam allowance. So I'm opening this up. Oh my gosh, I sewed with little stitches, didn't I? That was me that told you when you're piecing this to piece with a 2. That's my fault. This is what I'm going to do. Find the center of this and the center of this. I'm going to fold this over, find the center, and the center is, it's this seam right here between the green and the orange. I'll put a pin in just to remind me, and then I'm going to find the center on this triangle, point to point. I'm going to put a little crease right there. There we go. This is stretchy because it's on the bias, so be very, very careful, all right? So I'm going to line up my pins on both ends and pin it together. I'm keeping it very flat, and I am not stretching at all. You don't want a wonky block, which you'll get if you stretch. I'm going to take it to the machine and sew at 1/4 inch. Do you remember where the center on this was? It was the green and the orange, but some of my seams are a little ski-wampusy, so the exact center of this block is just barely onto the orange, because these are crooked, as you can tell. And then I take the second one and do what I did to the first one. Okay, stick that pin in there, match the 2 pins, line them up, then take it to the machine and sew it down. And will y'all look at that? All right, so we're gonna square this one up to 12.5 by 12.5. I'm just gonna lay this on top. I think that is the easiest way to do this. You know what I can do? I can say, hey, do I want this to be in on the corner? You know, you can move it up and down. I'm making sure that this seam line here lines up with this seam line, and they do. And I don't care about anything else. So here I go. I'm going to have a block that is 12.5 by 12.5. I'm using a squared one as a template. Wow, look at that. Would you like to see this block? Or you could do them all like this. That would be fun. Let's look at this block on the wall. Ta-da! Such a fun block to make. I think it gives impact. It really shows off the scraps. And it doesn't have to be white. I'm so in love with this background fabric. And the good news is I have a lot of it. What do you think of this layout? Are you thinking what I'm thinking, that there's probably a few more layouts? Well, you're right. You know what? X marks the spot. That must be why number 4 is my favorite quilt. I think part of it is the background color that I chose. If this were a white background or you know, a lighter background, it would be boring. But look how this dark blue background really makes my scrappy strips pop. I think it's so much fun. Would you like to see it with a lot of blocks? Here you go. Oh my goodness. Now do you know why it's my favorite quilt block? I love the X. This seems a little more traditional to me. I was kind of in a traditional mood, and this is going to be such a fun quilt. I can't wait to put it together and then come up with a totally wild backing for it. That is going to be fun. I would like to know, which is your favorite quilt block? Block number 1, block number 2, the rail fence, block number 3 with the turquoise background, or block number 4. Let me know in the comments below. I have been having so much fun with these. This humble scrappy strip, I can say it finally, it's not a strippy scrap, has been so much fun to work with. I have really enjoyed coming into my sewing room and just sitting and grabbing and sewing over and over. At one point, my design wall was totally full of these scrappy strips. It was really cool to see. In fact, oh, here's a picture of it right now. I hope you enjoy making scrappy strips like I did. It is a great scrap buster. I really did make a dent in my scraps. But you know what? I started going through my piles of scraps that I hadn't processed yet, and guess what? I made up for the dent. So the dent was just temporary. So now you know which one is my favorite, and I'm really dying to know which one is yours. Number 1, 2, 3, or number 4. You know what is really my favorite? My favorite thing about doing these videos is you. I met so many of you at QuiltCon, and I'm telling you, we have such a great quilting community, and it's all because of quilters like you. Thank you so much for watching my videos. I want to remind you that at the end of the month, I'm going to be in Hamilton, Missouri for the 3 Quilt AMIGAS retreat. It is going to be a ever-loving blast. I'm going to be taking Michelle, my business partner and daughter, with me to Missouri. I can't wait. It'll be fun to travel with her. Little mommy and daughter trip. She's coming along because she really is the boss of me as far as the business goes. She keeps me straight. She keeps me on track. She's a great partner. And those of you at the retreat, at the 3 Quilt AMIGAS retreat, are going to get to meet Michelle. But I didn't want Michelle to travel through the airport with just any old luggage. I wanted her to have a bag that is totally her style. So on my next video, I am going to be making the Patchwork Duffel Mini for Michelle. It's going to have my spin on it and her spin on it. I hope you like it. And Caitlin, the owner of Knot and Thread Design, is awesome. I will have a quilting code so you can go out to her website, checking out all of her patterns and her bag making supplies, and you can make your own. She does really cool patterns for bags, and then she has all the hardware and the fun stuff for them. Thank you so much again for watching my video. Love you all. Bye. We'll see you in a week.